So, welcome to Illusionist.com interviews. Today we're sat with Dynamo, fresh off his flight from Dubai last night. Dynamo, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, man. It's always good.
You've got a busy day of press today, so I want to start this with, what's your least favourite question that you always get asked? Because that way I can just cross it off the list before.
You know what, I kind of don't really have a least favourite, because I think it's my job as a performer to be able to, you know, if you give me a question that I've been asked a million times, I've got to try and find a new way of answering it.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you've been away for 5 years. Everyone's missed you. What's happened in that 5 years? Explain to everyone, in the last 5 years, what's been going on with Dynamo?
So, obviously, after finishing Mission Impossible Series 4, I decided that I wanted to kind of take a break from television. If anyone who's ever had, you know, any kind of work in TV knows that it's quite grueling, you know, the whole process. And I kind of lost a bit of the love and the passion for TV magic, and I really missed that feeling you get when you perform, you know, like live without the constraints of having to get, you know, footage on film, you know, and like there's just that thing, you know. Often I'd be in different countries performing, and then I'd almost like wouldn't even remember what I'd done in those countries until I watched it back in the edit, because it was just so fast paced.
Yeah.
So I kind of needed to take a step back, and I spent like a year creating a live tour, which was supposed to be 10 shows, 5 at Hammersmith Apollo and 5 at Manchester Apollo. But it ended up becoming 111 shows just in the UK. And we ended up adding, right at the end, we did more shows in London and in Manchester at the O2 Arena and at the MEN in Manchester, as well as pretty much every other arena that we could find in the country and over in Ireland. It was pretty epic. We also went on to take that tour to South Africa, to Australia, doing magic shows on stage in front of 12,000 people a night in like the arena in Australia, in like Sydney and Brisbane, Perth, as well as South Africa, New Zealand. You know, yeah, man. I mean, it was a crazy roller coaster of a journey, and then doing that, it kind of gave me the reinvigoration that I needed to kind of think about coming back on TV. Mm-hmm. And I started to make a TV show, Beyond Belief, a show that is coming out this year. I actually started to make it 3 years ago, and I was just getting into the swing of it. I had all these new ideas, and then unfortunately my illness got the better of me, and I had to put my show on hiatus for 2 years whilst I kind of spent time recovering.
So I really want to concentrate on that, because that is an underlying thread to the entire series now that's coming out on Sky One. So, you know, one of the things that people experience online is online abuse and online bullying. And I wanted to ask you, how did you deal with that difficult time of going from, you know, headlining arena tours all over the world to then, you know, hospital bed, posting photos on Instagram, you know, being honest, being transparent with your fans, and then being so vulnerable during that time? How did you deal with that?
I mean, in some respects, it was my body telling me that I needed to take a break. That's the way I look at it, you know. I was in hospital for quite a while, and my body needed to recoup. So I took that time to kind of, you know, I've never been one to kind of, you know, let things hold me back. So whilst I was in hospital, I was just like reading all these magic books that I'd bought at like Blackpool that I'd just been sitting in a drawer for years. And I finally got a chance to kind of catch up on, you know, on the studying that I'd been missing out on. And then whilst I was in hospital, which is what's crazy, and I think what's so interesting about the new show, is that all the magic in the new show, apart from the stuff that was filmed before I got ill, was created from a hospital bed. Yeah, like it was, a lot of it, I'm going to be honest, I came up with whilst I was highly intoxicated on prescribed medication from the doctors, because I was in so much pain a lot of the time that they were pumping me full of morphine and everything. Yeah. So some of the ideas were a bit out there. Yeah. But you hear about a lot of music artists, you know, who kind of come up with some of their best songs and their best lyrics from tragedy, and that's kind of a little bit like what I've had to go through. So I think in some ways the stuff I'm making now and the show I'm bringing to people has so much more meaning for me personally, and I just want to do the magic world, and and all the fans and all the people who've supported me. Just I want to do them justice by giving them something better than they even expected.
So, you had that time to sit there with your own ideas, with your own thoughts, with all of the new things that you've uncovered from the books that you've bought that, previously you've just left in a drawer. And then you had the experience just before that of, playing on stage. How has your magic evolved in the last 5 years since you kind of wrapped the last TV show to now? What would you say is the biggest change in your magic since then?
I think a big thing, which is actually something that Brad Christian has been saying forever, is I've really slowed the performance down.
Yeah.
Allowing the magic to fully breathe. Like, I always used to let the reactions breathe. I believed, I think it was Paul Harris, who said, let them live in that moment of astonishment. Mm-hmm. And I've always really took that and really used that when I performed. Hence why often I walk away and let the magic just live in itself. I used to watch a lot of magic shows growing up, and there was almost too much magic in there.
Yeah.
To the point where you don't remember what they've done by the end of the show, because you've just almost had it's become like a sketch show, and it's just like trick after trick after trick after trick, and you don't get a chance for the magic to sink in. And I think what a lot of people forget about is that the magic happens genuinely in the spectator's mind, and we know what we're doing as magicians. We know what the end result should be. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time. So I think it's easy for us to kind of want to just move on to we've done one thing and I want to move on to the next cool trick that we know, without letting the spectator catch up, because you've got to let it sink in, and that's where the real magic lies. So I think slowing down my performances, which had to also come with, I had to develop that skill when I was on stage, because when you're performing for 12,000 people and you've got to make sure that every single audience member is hanging on your every word and actually understands the magic that's taking place, because in arenas you can't always see up close and personal what's going on. Sometimes you're looking at the screen, sometimes you're looking back at the stage. It's really important that there's clarity in all the magic moments. So I always used to, if I'm being honest, I never really had the respect for stage illusionists and for performers. Obviously, I respected, David Copperfield and the sort of illusionists, the big Las Vegas performers. But I didn't really give them enough credit for how much work that goes into creating those shows. Because I'm just well, it's a big box illusion, he's not doing a bottom deal, he's not doing a crazy sleight, he's just standing there and presenting and speaking and telling stories. But I didn't really understand how much of a craft that is to master, and in some ways it gave me something new to strive for. Now, I want to be the best storyteller I can be, because that's where real magic lies. And I kind of took a step back, because I wasn't just reading magic books in hospital. I read 96 books whilst I was in hospital. I was there for 6 weeks. I was just I didn't have internet, I didn't have TV.
I don't think I've read 96 books in my life.
Yeah, it was crazy. And they weren't 10 pages long each. They were full books. But majority of them weren't magic books. They were about, a myriad of different things, from politics to, filmmaking to stoicism, lots of different things. Because I think to be a good storyteller, you have to have a vast array of things to talk about. And it's very easy as magicians to just get caught up in that magic bubble.
Yeah.
Not talk about things outside of magic, which then, when you come across real people, they don't talk about magic all the time.
Yeah.
They talk about things in the news, they talk about things that are going on. And it kind of, it made me realise that it's important to become more well-rounded as a person as well as a performer, in order to deliver the best performances, so that people can relate to them on a genuine level. You're not just throwing out scripted patter that every other magician uses. Like I say, every piece of magic in the new series was kind of developed through a negative or sometimes positive experience that I went through when I was recovering.
But it feels personal, One of the things, I'm lucky enough to see 2 episodes, the first 2 episodes of the series. And, you know, afterwards, you can always say to somebody, you know, as a friend, you can say it's good, but it's genuinely brilliant, like actually incredible.
Yeah, you saw some early edits as well.
Yeah,
They weren't even finished episodes. You got to see a sneak peek.
But we sat there and you were like, hey, check this out. And I slowly do this and I start leaning in and I'm so engaged and fixated on the screen. And everyone else on screen is doing the exact same thing. And there's a tone to it. There's a tone and a slowness to your performance. And it feels unique. So how hard was that to get on camera? Did you have to kind of go and perform to 15 people until you got the right thing? You know, you fly into a new city, maybe they don't speak the language. Did you tailor that to everyone? Or in your own mind, did you think, right, I know exactly what kind of person this is going to work for, what kind of person is going to react to this the best? Like, how did you get around that?
Whenever I travel to different countries, and I've been fortunate to travel to some of the most amazing places on the planet, I'd really try and embed myself within the culture. In the show, one of the things that I'm kind of really proud of is the fact that a lot of the magic in the foreign countries where English is not their first language, I'm performing the effects I'm performing in Japanese. You know, yeah. I'm performing.
Don't you do one in like Portuguese or Spanish or something?
Yeah. In Mexico, yeah.
Oh my God.
And obviously, and there's some stuff in Russian as well. Like not everything, you know.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it was really. I think it's quite interesting when I was watching back the edits to see me subtitled.
Yeah.
I mean, people used to subtitle me anyway because they couldn't understand the Bradford accent.
From Bradford, yeah.
But like to subtitle me when I'm speaking a foreign language, and I think it really meant the magic connected on a different level. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things that I was really proud of. But also, it's creating magic that is truly universal. Mm-hmm. I wanted things in the show that even with the sound off, because a lot of people watch stuff on their phones now when they're on their commute, and they don't necessarily they're looking at subtitles. You know, they're not listening to the full sound. So I wanted it so that the magic, even if you had the sound off, you could understand what was going on.
Yeah, and you really can in this new series. And
one of the things as well, the other thing that I think magicians will appreciate a lot, which was very hard to do, but I think the results hopefully speak for themselves, is we tried as much as possible to film all the magic in one take, as in like no camera cuts.
Yeah.
So like it's choreographed, you know, to they just got one camera guy following me, and the camera there's no edits, there's no cuts, so people can't watch it, you know. And so one of the criticisms of Magician Impossible was, you know, it was very heavily edited and cut up for the pacing. Mm-hmm. But we managed to still have the pacing there, but have it through controlled delivery, through storytelling, through, you know, just through making every moment on camera poignant and like almost like a movie. Like I do not want to over egg it by saying this, but like when we were kind of coming up with the concepts of the show and the scenes and thinking about how we're going to put it all together, you know, we were looking at like the greats, like we were looking at Scorsese, we were looking at, you know, we were looking outside of the normal places you'd look to find magic.
Yeah, I mean, there's one shot for me that you do, you know, I'm not going to give away the trick, but it's in a bar, it requires a shot. I'm not going to say what happens because I don't want to give away too much, but it's very David Fincher-esque. You know, the background's all dark and the camera pans in under your arm to kind of get that view. So I mean, you can definitely tell. I'd say that you've studied these things and you went after it. But you know, going into that as well, this was filmed in an entirely new way, wasn't it? This was filmed.
Oh yeah, right.
So you know, if you can discuss that.
As well as trying to film it all in one shot, in order to make it stand out and look beautiful, more than like, not even just magic shows, I you know, I'm biased obviously, but I do think that it looks better than most just TV shows and even stands up next to films, because we filmed the whole thing on anamorphic prime lenses. Now, for people who don't necessarily know what they are, well, they're the same lenses that J.J. Abrams has used on Star Wars. You know, they're usually what they use in feature films. Like, it just gives it such a cinematic quality, but I've managed to do it in a way where you don't lose the realism. You know, there's a problem with sometimes when you can overproduce magic. There's a lot of magic shows I've seen that, you know, that kind of over the years where you almost don't believe the magic because it looks so overproduced that you just think, well, they could just use special effects. You know,
yeah.
like
I think Penn Jillette talks about that. Like in his show, he only wants to perform things that look like they could be possible, because if it's too good, no one will ever believe that it's actually magic, you know, as a performance and not a camera trick.
Yeah. It's like the thing about it is I wanted to make the most beautiful but also the most honest magic show at the same time, and make it raw and gritty, but yet have this incredible sheen to everything in it. Like, and it's not got a format like Magician Impossible. It's not like a travelogue. I'm here, there, and everywhere. You know, performing in places such as like Dubai, Tokyo, Moscow. You know, in America, England. We went all over the place, but it's not like one episode features one country. One episode features many countries.
Yeah.
You know, and I pop up here, there, and everywhere. But each moment and each part of it is tied together with a narrative of how the magic was kind of, how it came about, the experience that I went through that led to that. Like, a lot of people know I've got Crohn's disease, but a lot of people might not know that I obviously developed arthritis throughout my illness, and in particular in my hands, which, you know, as someone who was like mad into cardistry and has, I mean, it wasn't called cardistry when I first started
Flourishing,
doing it.
back in
It
the
was
day.
flourishing.
We're too old now, we're both too old.
We're like the OGs.
I know, when we started it was flourishing.
And, you know, to be in a place where I couldn't even shuffle cards anymore was like one of the most depressing times of my life. So having to kind of go through that, initially it was like, this was the worst thing ever, because I couldn't shuffle cards, I couldn't flourish, and I couldn't even actually perform bog standard magic like I used to be able to do on a regular
Do you feel like you lost your identity in that moment? You know, you've always, you know, kind of from when you were a kid, you're the magician.
Yeah, I do think I lost a part of me, definitely.
Yeah.
But then in that time, it caused me to kind of really go back to a drawing board and think, all right, I'm not going to let the fact that I can't hand over cards anymore stop me creating moments of magic. And I focused on developing magic where I put the magic in the audience's hands and in some ways get them to manipulate the cards for me, or manipulate the objects for me without knowing how they've done it, and create incredible moments of magic from a different perspective. I'd still be the conduit to it, you know, I'd still have to be give really good presentations in order to make the magic super magical, even though I was doing as little as I possibly could because I didn't have the abilities. So, you know, I think hitting rock bottom, having these things happen to me, in some ways I wouldn't have created this new magic without it.
Yeah.
So it's a blessing in disguise in a way.
And it's a lesson for a lot of people at home as well, you know, maybe they've hit rock bottom, maybe they've gone through a difficult period of their life, and to know that you can bounce back and probably, I mean, definitely in your case, bounce back even better than before is a really, you know.
I mean, we'll let the people who see the show be the judge of that. But yeah, I mean, I do feel I feel like I've been through a journey. Do you know what I mean? You know, like you hear about like people, you know, when you look at someone, you can see behind their eyes like that guy's been through something and he's come out the other side and he's like, you know, he's a changed person. I definitely do feel like I've matured over the last few years. I've had no choice. If I didn't learn how to deal with it, then we wouldn't be having this conversation right now.
Yeah, I think, you know, that's kind of one of the things that shows through in the series when as you're watching it, you're seeing that personal development and growth. It's not just about visuals now, it's about moments, you know, creating those moments with people. So, you know, I want you to tell somebody at home, I don't know if you can give away just like one little tease. What was your favorite trick, either for the reaction that it got or for the kind of moment that you shared with a stranger whilst filming this new series?
Ooh. You know what? I do think the magic that I filmed in Mexico is probably some of my all-time favourites. Like, it's hard to say what I did without giving anything away.
Yeah, I mean, we can say that you attended Day of the Dead. We can say that.
Yeah, I went to Day of the Dead festival. That was incredible. But like, just Mexico as a backdrop is just iconic. But I didn't expect it to be as good as Japan. Yeah. I thought Japan, because I've always wanted to go to Japan, and I thought that was going to be like the highlight. But for me, I mean, it's amazing. Don't get me wrong. But the Mexico, like stuff that we filmed in Mexico, is probably my favourite from the entire show. There's something I did with a scorpion. That was pretty.
That was you performing in Spanish.
Yes. Yeah. That was one that I'm most proud of. Like, I don't want to say too much about it because I'm kind of almost ruining the punchline there by telling you about a scorpion. Yeah. But I think, doing that, because also, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of scorpions myself, so kind of, overcoming a fear a bit there as well.
As they go, they're not as good as spiders, but they're better than, I don't know, a jellyfish, aren't they, scorpions? They're somewhere in the middle of boring animals that you don't ever want on your body.
But they're actually they are stunningly beautiful, and they come with this visceral nature that I think everybody can appreciate, how they are a creature that you just don't mess with.
So then, going on to, from the very best, I want to hear about the very worst. What's your least favourite trick? And it doesn't mean that you don't like the magic. It could just be, it was so difficult. Your plane was delayed for 10 hours. You had to go out and get this one thing. What's your least favourite trick from that, and why?
I don't really have any least favourite pieces of magic, but the thing that I, would be well happy to live without is the lack of sleep whilst making the shows. We're flying from we'll fly to Dubai, and then we'll literally be filming that same night, and we don't stop. Like this last week, we've probably started filming 5 in the morning every day and gone right through till 10 at night. And and then I've gone to the gym straight after that, done my physio, and then had maybe 3 hours sleep, and then I'm up filming again. And trying to go out there and give energy, because as you know, as a magician, anyone who performs magic knows that the mental kind of gymnastics you have to do when you're performing to make it look effortless is actually exhausting.
It's like a duck on the surface of a pond.
Yes.
Underneath.
You're
going.
So I think that's the stuff that people never see.
Yeah.
People only see the results, whereas the work that goes in behind the scenes is that's what really creates the magic. And it's that hard work, because I think the best performers are the ones that make it look effortless. But if you're being a performer yourself, you know that it's dedication, years and years of hard work and kind of perseverance to try and create, real moments of wonder.
So, I know that you don't want to bring the tone down, but I do want to get as much as I can for people during the time that we've got. So one of the questions that I wrote here, it's a bit heavy, but I think it's really important to kind of ask. Your grandfather was a huge influence on your magic. Anyone that follows you on social media or that's seen the previous series of Mission Impossible, they know that about you. How do you think he would react now? Because sadly he's not with us anymore, but how do you think he would react now, seeing where you were, where you started, and who Dynamo was when he was first there, and then watching an episode of this series?
I mean, I hope I'm doing him proud,
Yeah.
Without my grandpa introducing me to magic, I'd never be doing what I'm doing now. I don't know what path I would have taken. He was the most amazing man I'd ever had. I didn't really have my father in my life. He was in jail. My mother was really young. She wasn't really around. So my grandpa and my grandma were the ones who kind of raised me. and he was like the main male constant in my life that just kind of, I think all my values and sensibilities come from him. But the way I see it now, like, I'm not creating my own legacy. Like, a lot of people, talk about, oh, the legacy you want to leave behind, but
Yeah.
I'm not. The legacy that I'm living in is my grandpa's legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And my idea of the future about legacy is not about what I can do for myself. It's about how I can impact other people, other young people who will then maybe be inspired by what I've done, which was initially inspired from my grandpa, which probably was inspired from magicians before him, that go on to shape the future generations. In 100 years from now, when I'm no longer here, if there's a kid or a young man then or young lady doing magic, and they initially were inspired by something they may have seen me do, or someone else who got inspired by me who's gone on to inspire them, that's the legacy constantly building and building and building. My legacy is not about me, it's about other people now.
Yeah. I mean, we've mentioned this before last time we spoke, but watching you do magic to Wyclef Jean on MTV Base was
so many years ago.
That's how I got into magic.
Wow.
So, we've come full circle and here we are. And I know you've got a busy day of press and there's so many questions I could ask you. I want to finish with 2 more, just a quick fire thing. So for those watching at home, if they are into magic and they do magic and they kind of live and breathe it, what one piece of advice would you give them that you've learned since this journey of making the series? What one piece of advice would you give them to improve their magic, tenfold?
In this modern era, I think, with YouTube and streaming and downloading, and obviously, Illusionist this is magic stream, so, obviously this is slightly counterintuitive what I'm about to say, but as well as watching all these amazing videos and tutorials and, soaking up all of the visual mediums that are available to us, I can't stress enough how important it is to read.
Mm-hmm.
Magic books are full of so many nuggets that nowadays most young magicians don't read magic books, so they miss out on so much. And the great reason why I think magic books are super important is that me and you could read the same book but take away different things from it.
Yeah.
We could, every time you read a book, you will interpret it a certain way. So then what it ends up doing is when you perform magic from that book, or when you take bits away from that book, you're putting yourself into it. Whereas when you watch someone on YouTube or on Illusionist, it's very easy to pick up their performance habits, and you end up, you can end up becoming a clone of somebody else. There was someone, I think it might have been Teller, who said this about how throughout a performer's life, they spend about, they probably go through 10 different personalities being like other people before they truly find themselves.
Yeah.
And I think the way to fast track finding yourself, which will then make your magic 10 times better, is by reading, because when you read, you'll find things that other people won't bother to take the time to do that. And also, put in the work. Like, it's very easy to, want to just look and get the next best trick that's getting released and want to just, get that, learn it, go out and perform it to your friends straight away.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, the best pieces of magic are the ones where the performer's taken years to fully understand it, and not years, it doesn't have to be years for everything, but but really understand what you're performing, understand why you're doing things. Don't just do the moves because that's what it says in the instructions.
As a fan of magic and as a fan of seeing magic on TV, it can only do good for the community of magic and for everyone's appreciation of how much hard work goes into it. So thank you so much for your time. It's going to be on Sky One and on Now TV in the UK, and it's syndicated in different countries. Which the release dates will be available online soon. If this goes out before, then people will have to hunt it down, but it's Dynamo Beyond Belief. Do you want to leave anyone with a closing message about this? You can, straight to camera, let them know, check it out, and what you'll be up to soon, and maybe even give them a sneak peek of...
Oh, yeah. So yeah, Dynamo Beyond Belief, it's coming to a TV screen near you soon. Well, not even just TV screen, you probably watch it on your phones as well, or your iPads. You know, I know people watch TV in different ways. Yeah, we live in the future. But yeah, it's probably the most kind of the hardest work I've ever put into anything. It's been a true passion project, and hopefully it does the magic world justice and keeps my grandpa's legacy going and inspires the future of magic. And also, yeah, whilst I've been, you know, creating this show, I've finally started to kind of create a deck of cards, which I think, you know, is really cool. Everyone's been saying to me for years, you need to do a Dynamo deck. But I've always been a bit like, well, I feel a bit, you know, if I create a deck of cards, I want it to be a deck that I'll use myself. Yeah. I don't want to use a deck that says Dynamo all over it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I've finally got a brand that I'm really excited about, which can't say when it's going to come out. This is literally the first deck. But yeah, watch this space. Shuffle is the playing cards, and it's going to be a lifestyle.
And I think it will be, and you can look out for that soon. So thank you, Dynamo, for your time. Really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us again, and we'll see you all soon.